everybody, welcome back to my channel. As you noticed, I got a few more videos this week than usual because I didn't do that many last week, so I'm making up for that. All right, today's topic is horror, air quotes, versus medieval D&D settings. I haven't done a Dungeons and Dragons video in a while. To be honest, I don't have a ton of D&D topics left in my brain to talk about. I've got like 3 more on my production list of future videos to do. So give me in the comments, please, ideas for future D&D topics, because I'd like to do more D&D topics without becoming a D&D channel. And no, I'm not going to launch a 4th channel where I only talk about Dungeons and Dragons, because I'm just not that into it. I love it. But anyways, let's talk about the settings. So the setting is basically the world that the players campaign in. So you have 2 pretty common themes among Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, I know, cosmic horror is kind of a thing, and space is kind of a thing with Spelljammer, but we're gonna tackle those in a future video. But today we're just comparing the typical Lord of the Rings, King Arthur medieval setting that we've all played. You know, you got the cleric, you got the knight, you got the wizard, you got the thief, you got the barbarian, you got the bard. Fuck the bard. But anyways, your typical storm the castle, raid the dungeon, win the, save the girl, get the treasure, slay the monster, go back to the cabin, the town, the lodge, and drink the ale and celebrate and have fun. Obviously, there's a bajillion campaigns that are different than that, but they mostly all take place in some form of a medieval style setting. There's usually castles and keeps and horses and, lodges and ale. It's very, very heavily medieval inspired. However, there's also Ravenloft and other horror campaign settings. So let's talk about horror campaign settings. These are usually like graveyards or crypts. They can be haunted mansions, Dracula-esque vampire castles, things like that. It can be like an ancient pyramid where you run into mummies and other undead creatures and things of that sort. Me personally, I would prefer to play in a horror-themed campaign. A graveyard, a fucking crypt, or any of the above that I just mentioned. That's my bread and butter. However, I do occasionally enjoy the chivalry of a good medieval knights in armor, rescue the damsel in distress, etc. type hack and slash campaign. I'm good with that. I just have more fun when it's horror themed, I don't mind fighting, gelatinous cubes or fucking, trolls or gnolls or goblins or whatever. I'm okay with that. Fine, sure, that's fine. But I would rather fight werewolves and skeletons and zombies and ghosts and ghasts and ghouls and other undead creatures. Give me a banshee. Give me a will-o'-the-wisp. Give me a fucking, a good, solid, powerful, scary-ass fucking ghost or a poltergeist. Give me a vampire. Give me a werewolf or a were-rat. Or any lichen. Any lichen. Give me more lichens. I love lichens in my Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Give me a fucking were-badger. I don't give a fuck. Make it fun, but also scary. I want scary. Make it like dark and damp. Put like moss on the wall and spider webs everywhere. You're crawling through spider webs. You know what I mean? Dead bodies, corpses, and skeletons and piles of bones on the floor. That's what I want from a Dungeons and Dragons or any type of fantasy campaign. Now, when I say horror, these are the examples I'm giving. This is what I'm looking for. I don't necessarily need a Lovecraftian type horror. I don't need the murder mystery aspect. I don't need the the detective stuff. I don't need the fucking, Call of Cthulhu is not for me. That kind of, no, I don't need that. I don't mean that when I'm talking about a horror themed Dungeons and Dragons setting. And it isn't just, specific to Ravenloft. Ravenloft is like the gold standard, absolutely. If you're going to do a D&D themed campaign, Ravenloft is a good place to get some inspiration. Diablo is a good place to get some inspiration. There's actually an official 2nd edition Diablo campaign setting, which I'm desperate to get my hands on. I'd love to play that fucking game, or at least read the books. God damn. I'd love that, to get my hands on that set. I played an actual D&D campaign that was set in the world in between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, and I had the most fun I've ever had playing Dungeons and Dragons, ever in my life. So, what else is there to say? Well, alright, when am I in the mood for a medieval fantasy, and what do I expect from a medieval fantasy setting? Well, when I'm in that mood, it's usually, I've played some Zelda recently, or I played some classic Final Fantasy Dragon Warrior on the NES, or recently, or I've watched, I don't know, maybe The Lord of the Rings, or Willow, or Conan, or something recently, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in the mood for that. That's usually when I'm, if I get in that mood, and I can get in that mood, yeah, sure, I'll sit down and play your medieval D&D setting, yeah, sure, why not? If it's fun, good. But there are a few standard tropes I want, because I'm pretty old-fashioned in regards to this stuff, even though I'm progressive in everything else. I'm a trans woman. I am a liberal. I've mentioned that multiple times on my other channel. Politically, I vote Democrat. So yes, I'm very progressive in that regards, especially when it comes to technology and social justice issues. But when it comes to, like, storytelling, I'm hella old-fashioned. Hella old-fashioned. I want my medieval settings to be authentic. So I want a castle with a lord in it who's cut off from the rest of the kingdom, who's like, yeah, I should be king, goddammit. And he has a wall and his own little mini army, and he's doing his own thing because he wants to be king. There's got to be a castle somewhere with the actual king or queen or whoever the monarch is. Horses and horse and carriages need to be the transportation of choice. There's got to be a village somewhere I can go to that has the weaponsmith and the lodge that sells the ale. Ale is 1,000%. It is mandatory. If my player character is not drinking ale, or it's not available to me if you've replaced it with some other drink, like lager or something else, wine or something else, I'm going to complain to the DM. I'm going to be like, no, my characters drink ale. That's it. That's just all they drink. Every D&D character I've ever played in a fantasy setting drinks ale. It's a staple. There also has to be the meeting, the standard meeting at the lodge, the meeting at the, where they all gather and they have their drinks, and it's a dark and stormy night and everybody's whispering, here's the situation, this is the rewards if we're successful, etc., etc. Yes, I need that. I want that. I need that. That's mandatory. If your campaign doesn't have that, you failed as a dungeon master, in my opinion. What else do I need? I need good dungeons. I want a manor somewhere in town. A rich person, the mayor or the burgermeister or whatever you fucking call him, I don't care. Some big mansion in town that we can go, or manor that we can go investigate at some point. I want a haunted house somewhere in the village. I want a witch living deep in the woods that everybody stays away from. I absolutely want, and I know this goes back to horror somewhere, but I absolutely still want a crypt. There needs to be a crypt involved in your campaign at some point, where I'm fighting zombies. Even if it's a medieval setting. And there's got to be some, I don't care if it's clerics or druids or sorcerers or there has to be some powerful, I will say religious or supernatural or spiritual organization that is akin, basically, to the Catholic and or Orthodox Church, depending on which part of the world you lived in at the time. There has to be some type of supernatural organization that has a hierarchical structure that has an influence over some parts, or if not most of, society and or governments. That's mandatory. That should be included in your campaign. Now you can modify this as needed. It can be a witches guild, it can be rogues, it can be druids, it can be fucking whatever. But it has to be there. And yes, there has to be a thieves guild. If your campaign doesn't have a thieves guild, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you dungeon mastering? You know, you failed D&D 101 if you don't have a thieves guild in your campaign. And call it a goddamn thieves guild. Don't call it a rogues guild. Even if you're using an edition that calls them rogues, they're fucking thieves, goddammit. I hate the word rogue. I hate it. Unless it's attached to a certain female X-Men character, I hate that word. Anyways. Obviously, I've already spelled out what I want from a horror setting, but what I want from both, I absolutely want some kind of big bad that is going to scare the fucking shit out of me at level 1. But I'm not even ready for until level 7 or 8. I want a big bad that the party needs to be at level 7 or higher to fucking take down. I want a big bad that's an actual big bad. I want a Thanos. I want a Loki. You know? I want a fucking, Count Dracula. Or fucking, Himotep or something. Give me a big bad that's gonna make me shit myself at level 3. And piss my pants at level 5. Make the big bad a big bad. Don't give me some duke who's got, some hang-up on he's in love with the Lord's daughter and he kidnaps her and you have to rescue her. And he's like a fucking level 6 fighter. Fuck off. I don't want that. That's not the big bad. Give me a lich. You know what I mean? Give me something. Give me something to build up to work up to. Make it interesting. That's all I want. Stay cool.